भगवद गीता अध्याय 2 श्लोक 12 न त्वेवाहं जातु नासम् न त्वन्नेमे जनाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्। So, from Shloka 11, Bhagavan is teaching Arjuna he is teaching Atma Jnana, Atma Vidya, which is also called Adhyatma Vidya, the knowledge of the self, knowledge of the Atma. What is Atma? Once I was invited to teach Vedanta to a group which has been studying Vedanta for 40 years. 40 years they have been studying Vedanta from different people, from different acharyas. And then they invited me to teach them some more Vedanta. And I went there. Before I started teaching Vedanta, I raised a question. I asked them a question. Just to understand their level of understanding, their level of Vedanta knowledge, how far they have studied. I asked this question: what is Atma? Surprisingly, none of them could answer properly. They have studied Vedanta for 40 years without knowing what is Atma. It is like listening to Ramayana without knowing who is Sita. Atma is the essential topic of Vedanta. Bhagavad Gita is a Vedanta text. Even Bhagavad Gita is Vedanta. Therefore, even Bhagavad Gita is teaching the Atma. What is Atma? A very good definition of Atma is the one that deserves the reference I. Atma is the one that deserves the reference I. Atma is the one which deserves to be called I. If you put it in Sanskrit, it is aham pratyaya yogyaha. It deserves to be called I. If you ask yourself, what deserves to be called I? Often we use this pronoun I. Not a single day goes in our life without using the pronoun I. If anybody has spent a day without using the pronoun I am sure that day he or she was in Maunam. In any language. It may not be in English, it may be in Marathi or Tamil or Gujarati or Kannada, any language. Every language has this pronoun I, equivalent to I. I is universal. We use the pronoun I without knowing the actual meaning of I. Without even inquiring into the meaning of I. What is the actual meaning of I? What really deserves I? If we inquire a little, we understand that throughout our life, we have been mistaking. We have made a mistake all our life in identifying the true I. What is I? When we show an identity card or a picture, we say, this is me. The picture is you. Selfie. What is selfie? The picture of the self. Atma. Self is Atma. The closest translation of the Atma in English is self. But the picture is not self. The selfie is not self. Because the selfie portrays your body, your appearance. Let us understand about this body. We identify with the body. When someone asks who you are, you show here, this is me. We point at our chest. In fact, not an inch here and there. It is exactly here. Automatically our hand goes here. This is me. We are confining the self to the body, identifying with the body. But is the body you? Am I the body? The body does not deserve to be called I, because anything that is objectified does not deserve to be called I. This table in front of me, I cannot refer to the table as I, because the table is an object. I see the table. The table is object and I am the subject, the seer. Therefore, the table is does not deserve the reference I. I can only say this to the table. This is table. Not I is the table. Not I am the table. Therefore, the table does not deserve the reference I. It is very much evident to us. Likewise, if we look at our body, even the body is as much objectified as the table. We see our body. We see the presence and absence of our body. We see the movement of our body. The body is an object. Therefore, the body also does not deserve the reference I. Therefore, any attribute of the body cannot be attributed to me. The attributes of the body cannot be attributed to me. But unfortunately, we attribute the attributes of the body to ourselves. It is a mistake, a universal mistake. I am young, I am old, I am 6 feet tall, I am male, I am female, I am a human being, I am an Indian, so on and so on. All these are the attributes of the body, and we attribute it to ourselves. Neither the body nor its attributes deserve to be called I. They are not the self, not the Atma. Therefore, the body does not qualify to be the Atma. It is not the self. Then what else is the self? What else is the Atma? Is it the mind? In most of the Western philosophy, mind is taken as Atma, as the self. A human being thinks he is the mind. They talk about a body-mind duality. I am the mind and I have a body. This is one way of looking at it, a worldview. But if you inquire, even the mind is an object. It is very much evident when you go to sleep. When you are sleeping, there is no mind, but you are there, even in deep sleep. You are enjoying the bliss of deep sleep. The mind is absent, and when you wake up, the mind surfaces again, and you are experiencing the mind, all its thoughts, all its turbulences. Just think about this. You go to sleep and you wake up. What makes the change between waking and deep sleep? It is the presence and absence of mind. In deep sleep, there is no mind, and in waking, there is mind. Therefore, you are not the mind also. Even the mind does not deserve to be called I. Then what is the self? It is the one which witnesses the body as well as the mind, which objectifies the body as well as the mind, which itself cannot be objectified, which itself cannot be witnessed. That is the self. It is not an object of consciousness. It is not an object of awareness. Instead, it is the awareness itself. It is the consciousness itself. The self is, the Atma is the consciousness. In Sanskrit, consciousness is called Chaitanya. Chaitanya does not mean energy. It is not energy. Energy is a physical thing. Many people think Vedanta is talking about matter and energy. Vedanta is not talking about matter and energy. Vedanta talks about something which knows both matter and energy, which transcends both matter and energy. It is the consciousness, because of which everything becomes evident. Everything in the world becomes evident because of consciousness. It is the Atma, the illuminer of the body as well as mind. So the Atma is your true self, your true nature, neither the body nor the mind. And now Krishna says, Krishna is teaching Arjuna that you are not the body, you are not even the mind, instead you are the Atma. And just like you, all of us are Atma. Arjuna is Atma, Krishna is also Atma, and all the other people. assembled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, even they are nothing but the Atma. In the battlefield, when the arrows are shot, who is going to die? The Atma is never going to die because Atma is a Nityaha. Atma is eternal. It neither has birth nor it has death. It is free from birth and death. Atma does not have a date of birth, and Atma does not have a date of death also. Therefore, in the battlefield, only the bodies will fall. The bodies will die, but the Atma is not going to die because Atma is eternal, free from birth and death. With this statement, Krishna is trying to shift Arjuna's focus from body to Atma. Generally, an individual is body oriented. He identifies with the body, himself as well as others. He identifies himself as a body and he also identifies others as bodies. Now Krishna is trying to make Arjuna see a greater reality of everyone, himself as well as others. Natvevaham jatunasam. See the shloka. Natvevaham jatunasam. There was never a time when I was not there. There was never a time when I was not there. Means I was ever there. I was always present. The body came at a particular date in time, but the Atma was never born. It has been there forever. When did Atma begin? Atma doesn't have any beginning, sir. Natvam. Even you were not born at any point of time. You have been there from beginningless time. You have been there forever. Neme janadhipaha. And so are all these janadhipaha, all these kings. It never happened that they did not exist. Even they existed forever. There was not a time when they did not exist, because everyone is Atma. Nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param. And in the future also, atah param, hereafter, there won't be a point of time when we will not be there. Na chaiva na bhavishyamah. There will not be a time when we will not be there. Means we will always be there in future also. Implying Atma does not have death. Atma does not have destruction. Atma is free from birth and death. It is eternal. Therefore, one who is aware of the Atma as the true self, as the true nature of himself as well as others, he does not have any room to grieve. He does not have any reason to grieve for himself as well as for others. When do you grieve for someone? When he or she perishes, when he or she gets annihilated, you have a reason to grieve for him or her. But when people are eternal, there is no room for grief, no room for sorrow. देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिः धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. So, the body will have changes. A body keeps changing. But with the change of the body, the Atma does not undergo any change. Atma survives the body. Atma continues to exist in the body despite the change of the body. The body has three stages. You can consider three stages or sometimes four stages of the body. It can vary. You can choose your own number. Generally, in the Shastra, they talk about 3 or 4 stages of the body. If it is 4 stages, Balya, Kaumara, Yauvana and Jara. Balya means childhood, early infant stage. Kaumara, adolescence. Yauvana, youth. And Jara, old age. These are 4 stages of the body, 4 stages of life. And Krishna does not give 4 stages. He gives only three stages: Kaumaram, Yauvanam, Jara. That means he has included Balya in Kaumara. Balya and Kaumara are collectively mentioned as one stage. Then Yauvanam, youth, and then Jara, old age. So three stages. When an individual transforms from one stage to another stage, the body undergone a lot of changes. In fact, it does not remain the same body. The body of a child and the body of the same person when he has become a youth are not really the same. Every atom and every molecule has changed in the body. Still, the person identifies himself as the same person. Earlier I was young, now I have become old. The person has not changed with the change of the body. This is a very beautiful example to show that one does not change with the change of the body. An individual does not change with the change of the body. The person does not change with the change of the body. The body keeps changing. Though we consider it one body, it is not really same body. It has changed. If it can happen in one lifespan, the change of the body does not constitute change of the person. The same thing can be extended to another life also. The change in life also does not change the person. He may go from one body to another body without change in the person himself. So in this shloka, Krishna takes change of the body in one lifespan as the example to establish that the person does not change even when the body itself changes from one body to another body. The person continues to be the same. So the bodies keep changing. That does not mean the person perishes. He will continue to be present body after body. Yatha dehinah asmin dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara. Just as an individual goes through various stages in this life, Kaumara, Yauvana, Jara, in all these three stages, the bodies change, but the person does not change. Similarly, Dehantara Praptihi, तथा देहांतर प्राप्ति, he attains another body. What has changed? Body has changed. The individual has not changed. Atma has not changed. Therefore, despite the changes in the body, despite the birth and death of the body, the Atma is eternal. Therefore, dhirastatra na muhyati. A wise man is called dhiraha. A dhira, a wise man does not get deluded. Na muhyati. He is not deluded about the impermanence of the body. When the body dies, he does not think Atma is dead. He does not say the person is dead. He just says the body has perished. That is a wise man's understanding. Therefore, when a wise man sees someone dying, he is not as much disturbed by the loss as an ignorant one. For an ignorant one, the death of the body is death of the individual. Therefore, he will experience shock when his near or dear one dies. But the same thing does not happen with the wise man. He is able to withstand the loss because he knows that the person has not become extinct. It is just the extinction of the body, or rather a change of the body. मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्ण सुख दुःखदाः आगमापायिनो नित्याः नास्ति तिक्षस्व भारत. Now Arjuna might ask a question to Krishna, having heard the previous verses. O Krishna, I can understand that the Atma is eternal. One does not die with the death of the body, etc. All these are fine. But then there is pain in life. The life is full of pleasure and pain. No life is without pleasure and pain. There are moments of pleasure in life. But the moments of pleasure do not last forever. Successful days do not last forever. Pleasurable days do not last forever. Life is always in a cycle. Life always moves in a cycle. Just like the stock market. If you look at the stock market, it is always a cycle. It goes up and goes down, goes up, goes down. And it is always unpredictable also. No one can predict exactly what is going to happen tomorrow, whether it will go up or whether it will go down. In the language of stock market, it is bear and bull, bearish and bullish. Sometimes the stock market is bullish, sometimes it is bearish. Similarly, our life also. Sometimes everything seems to be all right, everything seems to be fine, whereas sometimes everything seems to be going wrong. How to handle this problem? The problem of ups and downs in life. Now, Krishna says, understand that it is the nature of life. The life is always full of ups and downs. In the language of Vedanta, it is called Dvandva. Dvandva means pairs of opposites. Shita and Ushna, heat and cold, Sukha and Dukkha, pleasure and pain. Life is full of pairs of opposites. Sometimes there is Shita, sometimes there is Ushna, heat and cold, pleasure and pain, Sukha and Dukkha, pleasure and pain. So there is Dvandva, the pairs of opposite, they keep fluctuating in life and they are inevitable. Accept that they are inevitable. One has to accept that they are inevitable. And also one should understand that they are anityaha, they are impermanent, they are temporary. Not only they are temporary, they come and go. If they come, they also go. And they cannot cause any permanent damage to the Atma. They cannot cause any permanent damage to yourself. Because yourself, your Atma is really unaffected by all of them. They seem to trouble yourself, but in reality, the Atma is unaffected. Because Atma is free from changes. Atma is free from modifications. which will be clear as we go ahead. The Atma, which is free from changes, is not going to be affected by the incidental experiences of pleasure and pain. Therefore, agama payinaha, they come and go. Understand this. And then Krishna says, Tan titikshasva bharata. With this understanding, titikshasva, endure them, put up with them. Learning to put up with the difficulties instead of complaining about the difficulties is a great tapas. It is a sadhana in itself. In fact, the painful experiences are a blessing in disguise. In Bhagavatam, Kunti tells Krishna, Vipadas santunas shashvat tatra tatra jagadguru bhavato darshanam yat syat apunarbhava darshanam. Kunti tells Krishna, let me have difficulties in life time and again, because it is when I have difficulties that I remember you and I am able to call you. And I can feel your helping hands. At the time of difficulties, the difficulties make us look towards Ishvara. The difficulties make us cultivate dependence on Ishvara. And the difficulties help us in cultivating Vairagya as well. Therefore, Titiksha, learn to endure the difficulties, looking upon the difficulties as an opportunity for one's own spiritual growth. Tan titikshasva bharata. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate.